everybody. Welcome to the Hallmarkies podcast. And ho, 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 we are here to talk about some classic Christmas movies. It's always a ton of fun. And we've done, I think this is our seventh now, which is kind of amazing.
Wow.
Yeah, we've done a bunch. And I'm Rachel Wagner, and Thaddeus is here.
Hey, Merry Christmas in July, everybody.
Yeah, Merry Christmas in July. I'm not sure when I'm going to air this. So if it's not July, but we wish you Merry Christmas wherever you are and whatever you're doing. And it's always nice to watch a Christmas movie year
hmm
round
Yes.
in Hallmarkies podcast. No. But is it roasting hot by you where you're at, like it is here?
It's been pretty warm. It's
Yeah.
been warm and humid. It's been like in the 90s for the
Hmm.
past like week or so.
Yeah.
And yeah, so it's been pretty warm and you know, air conditioning went up at my parents' house where I was over the weekend, and so that was fun. That was a lot of,
Yeah.
thankfully we had fans and whatnot, but
It's like you get to see a whole new side of your family.
yeah.
Oh, well, we're covering two movies this time, and they're both going pretty far back
hmm
into the Hallmark history. I mean, one of them, it was one of the first, I think, ever that they
So
did.
yeah.
And we're talking about, first up, A Town Without Christmas, and then we're going to talk about Baby's First Christmas, which is go back to 2012.
hmm
And had you seen either of these films before?
I Yes. I don't think I've ever seen like the whole Town Without Christmas movie. I remember maybe seeing like part of it, um, maybe a year or so after it came out. But I've definitely seen Baby's First Christmas. I remember that well, and I used to
Hmm.
watch it, pretty much every year. And then, as they started expanding the the movies, it kind of fell off, and I hadn't seen it in several years. So
Hmm.
and so it was a revisit after not seeing it for quite a few years.
Yeah.
Um, time.
I have to say they were both a lot more downbeat than I remember. I think I had seen The Town Without Christmas, but it's been many,
hmm
many years. And then Baby's First Christmas, I don't think I'd ever seen. But both
hmm
were pretty sad.
Yeah, in some ways, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. It's particularly one, which
Yeah.
I'm sure. Uh,
Uh, well, let's dive in. Let's talk about them. I thought they were both okay. I didn't love either of them, but they weren't. I guess they were different than I was expecting. And
yeah.
neither of them was that much of a romance, which is interesting. They had little bits, but they were more sort of family dramas
hmm
than anything else. But A Town Without Christmas, it's in the small town of Seacliff, Washington. A child's letter to Santa Claus captures the nation's attention when the little boy Chris writes that he wishes to leave this world so he will no longer be a burden to his divorcing parents. A race begins to find him before he harms himself. And this stars Patricia Heaton, Rick Roberts, Ernie Hudson, Peter Falk, director Andy Wolk, and writer Michael J. Murray. So, what was your overall thoughts about this movie? What'd you
Okay.
think?
So I thought that it was like the actors were very good. I thought that the story was interesting, very not like what we think about when we think about Countdown to Christmas Hallmark in the subject matter.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and when it came out, I mean, I was like, "What? This kid is threatening to commit suicide if Santa doesn't like save their family." And then we come to find out that it's really just this young kid that's afraid about her parents getting divorced,
Mm-hmm.
um and she wasn't really going to do it, but she wanted to get Santa's attention. And I mean, obviously I hadn't seen it in quite a long time, so I didn't even remember. But as soon as they started focusing on the little girl, I was like, oh, she's Chris. But um yeah, that just didn't really make any sense to me at all. I was like, what was she thinking? And then when all these reporters and everything and the FBI like were coming to the town and looking for this child, she just sat there and just didn't say anything. I'm sure she was scared, but still. So that just made no sense.
Mhm.
Like I said, the acting was good. Um, the I did feel like the two leads felt more like actual characters than archetypes, which is
Yeah.
a plus. I felt like they were pretty well developed and interesting characters. But the overarching story that was kind of like holding them together was just kind of it definitely had some high stakes.
Mhm.
Well, we thought that it had high stakes until we found until we learned this twist about this little girl. But I mean, um,
I don't know, with like both of these movies, if you're gonna have as much marital conflict as both these movies had, then you have to really make it pay off. Like it really has to be worth it because I I just find that extremely uncomfortable and hard to watch. And so like the reconciliation or the like the sense, okay, we're gonna part different ways, and whatever the ending is, it has to really pay off. And the fact that they had these two get back together over with like no resolution of their real problems, and like
yeah, they
when they had
never
been
even talked about the reasons.
fighting the whole movie, I was
Yeah,
just like, "Oh, come on."
yeah. So yeah, you're right. It was just such an afterthought. So basically, like, so we go. I guess we'll go
Yeah.
into like what actually happens, right? So,
So yeah, so
uh,
it starts out with this letter to Santa that yeah,
mhm,
takes over the country, and her manager, who's played by Ernie Hudson,
mhm,
he says, you need to go and cover this case. And I did think it was like so 2001 you would never see on Hallmark now, but the whole uh are guns a problem or protection? Like
yeah. Oh yes, yeah. That
like
segment
there's
does
so
the
many reasons you would
cover.
never see a character doing a story like that. Like if they were trying to show her as being like hard hitting, she pulls no
Yeah,
punches.
exactly. That was her thing. That she was a hard hitting journalist, and that was kind of like and that was the type of thing that a hard hitting journalist would do. She went undercover, use a
Hmm.
fake ID to like get this gun to try to prove like, okay, uh, anybody can just get a gun, and is that really safe? And should we and all that? And then she was like, "It's Christmas. Let's do a lighthearted, fun Christmas story about a kid trying to commit suicide." So, so we're gonna, and so she gets assigned to this story, and
Well,
runs
it's
in.
just amazing, like how much has fundamentally changed since
Hmm.
2001 on so many levels. First of all,
Yes.
that would be in a Hallmark movie. Second of
Hmm.
all, that's the way news was, and like, third of all, and that you would have no uh internet kind of involvement or
Hmm.
story, or there would be no part of this whole thing, that it would
Well,
all
yeah,
be
this
just
is
this.
this is kind of like pre-ubiquitous internet. I'll just say
Yeah,
that.
yeah. Ho, ho, ho. We'd like to take a second and thank our sponsor for this episode of the podcast. It's the Hallmarkies Patreon.
Do you love Hallmarkies podcast, especially at Christmas?
Do you enjoy the holiday previews, recaps, interviews, and bonus episodes?
If the answer is yes, please consider supporting the Hallmarkies Patreon. We need your help to do what we do both during the Christmas season and all year round.
But not only do you help a podcast led by strong, independent women by becoming a Patreon, you get to become a part of the Hallmarkies family.
Starting at only $2 a month as a patron, you will have access to our Facebook Patreon group where we talk about the movies, shows, and more all year.
We also have many monthly patron watch alongs with guests like Lacey Chabert, Natalie Hall, Paul Campbell, Mary Lou Henner, and more, giving their behind the scenes details of their films.
As a patron, you also have the chance to provide input into the podcast and even join us at different tiers.
So this Christmas season, spread some cheer to the Hallmarkies Patreon and become a member today. You won't regret it.
Go to patreon.com/Hallmarkies to learn more.
That's patreon.com/hallmarkies. Like this movie now, she would absolutely be like a TikToker or YouTuber or something like that. She
Or
wouldn't be.
podcaster.
Yeah, podcaster. Yeah. And the manager guy says, "You going to put a bell on your cat and drink eggnog?"
Yes, because she was saying that she had plans, and her
Yeah.
plans were to go to Christmas with her mother, who I guess she didn't really get to spend that much time with because
Yeah.
of her job. Um, and
Yeah,
she,
but asking somebody to give up their plans with their mother to cover
Mhm.
like that was kind of shocking too. Like you should be a total Scrooge.
Yeah, yeah. Usually, if someone has that time, if they have approved time off, you don't just say, "Look, we're rescinding that approved time off, and you have to work."
I do love Patricia Heaton. I think
Hmm.
she is a really not only a good actress, but she is just she even on a show that I frankly don't love is Everybody Loves Raymond, just because again that fighting
Hmm.
just is not for me. I just don't find that enjoyable. And but she does bring even to that character, she brings a warmth, likability. I
Hmm.
love The Middle. The Middle is a great show, underrated show. I mean it got 9 seasons, so it can be that underrated, but I just always felt like it should have been up for Emmys, and I thought it was so well written. She was so good in it, and I just really enjoy that show. So I just like her a lot. She's really good.
Yeah, I agree. I definitely think that she's very, very good, and um, and I liked how she played this character.
Hmm.
And so yeah, so she goes. I guess she's at the train station, right, to get to this town, and that's when she runs into the um the hero of the movie, who is um Walt working for Hallmark Cards. He's like writing greeting cards, and he also is also trying to write a novel and is trying to sell a novel that seems to be kind of based on his own childhood when he ran away from home.
Hmm.
And um,
And she was
yeah,
right in the thick of Everybody Loves Raymond when this came out.
yeah,
That show started in '96.
mm,
And
yeah,
so this was 2001. So it would have been right in the middle. And so that makes total sense of why they would have thought of her
mm-hmm,
for this role. And I don't know that the Rick Roberts, I don't think I ever have seen, I'm very familiar with him. I'm looking at his IMDb here. Looks like he's
mm,
a working actor
mm.
and done a
like
bunch of shows of stuff.
like for me, he's someone that you see him and you're like, okay, I've definitely seen him in something before, but you don't remember exactly what it is. Like, you know.
Yeah. Yeah. He has just like 2 episodes of this, 2 episodes of that, like a classic
Mhm,
working
exactly.
actor.
Yeah, and so he did and so, yeah, and so he did a good job, and so they meet at was it a train station or an airport? I think it was a train station, to go back to and he's actually from the town, and he, finds out about this story, and, um, he kind of identifies with the kid because he felt that way because he grew up in foster care, and he actually ran away from home.
Yeah. Well, and they'd have these flashbacks, which were really awkwardly done. I was like,
Mhm,
what is happening? Where's this? Because you're not sure if he's like telling a story or if this is, and then you're like, oh, okay, this is his. So he
mhm,
had this experience as a
mhm,
child that they portray. It's not just him telling the
mhm.
story of being rescued by this man,
Lu
this old
Yeah,
man saying,
lumberjack, what
yeah,
he called.
lumberjack,
Mhm,
and he wants to put this story in the children's book, and the
mhm,
agent's just like, uh, this is too sad. I can't
mm,
do it. And then he says, real writers don't quit.
mhm,
And uh this is, keep at it, but I can't sell this book. It's
mhm.
too sad. Which when you think about it, a lot of kids' books are kind of sad, like The
Yeah,
Giving Tree and I'll Love You Forever Always. And like there's kind of a sadness to a lot of these books.
yeah,
My forever,
yeah.
for always my baby you'll be, and the Giving Tree dies and
Oh, yeah,
spoiler
so
alert, sorry.
Yeah, so it was I, I did feel like that book was a little dark. I mean, even though it was based on his own experiences as a
Yeah.
child, you know. And then so when and in the course of like his own investigation, he goes and he gets these paintings that are like representations of things that are the things that actually happened, and there's like
Yeah.
you know a painting of the child dropping the letter to Santa in
And
the
there's a
mail.
particular angel
Mm,
in the letter.
yes.
And yeah, those were supposed to be like super whimsical.
Mm,
And I don't know if it quite worked. And the Peter Falk character is supposed to be super whimsical and charming and everything.
mhm. Obviously,
And
like
yeah.
because he's like in the city, but then he also shows up in the town, and
Hmm.
seems to have this hidden knowledge. Is he Santa? Is he an angel? Is he? We don't know. He's
Yeah.
some kind of um, figure.
Yeah. And basically, our leading guy works at Hallmark greeting
Yes,
cards, which was
yes,
funny.
yes. And he gets fired because he apparently his greeting cards aren't like fun and Christmassy enough.
Yeah.
Uh,
He wants to
just like
make the paintings into cards, but I don't see how
yeah,
those paintings would make good. I agree with the boss on that one.
yeah,
He was
yeah.
right.
And he's like, you need to go and find what you really want to do. And it's obvious that he was just doing that to pay the bills until he could start, working as get
Hmm.
as a published author.
Yeah.
Um, but so he was just
Hmm.
kind of going through the motions in that job
Yeah.
anyway. But so hopefully this story helps him, and so they end up running into each other at the train station.
But what
They
do you think is the end goal for the Peter Falk character? Is he trying to get this guy to love Christmas more, get him to the small town? Is he trying to get them together? Is he a matchmaker? What's his
I
goal
think
here?
trying to get him back on the right path, and so that's
David,
all. Of,
isn't
and yeah, that's all of the above. You know,
it?
he has lost his way. He's lost the spirit of Christmas.
Hmm.
He's lost. He's not really in touch with his actual goals
Hmm.
and all that stuff. So and he doesn't have love in his life. So he just needs to get it together.
He
All the
really does.
so
I mean, I think this is a terrible title. Can we talk
mhm,
about that for a second for this
yeah.
movie? Because it's not a town without Christmas. They're like fully celebrating Christmas. The only part of it that makes sense at all is the fact they're thinking of canceling the pageant.
Oh, the pageant. The mayor canceled the pageant.
They canceled the
And
pageant.
because they don't have the money to support the pageant,
Hmm.
because when he built the dam, the town was mainly for fishing with
Yeah.
salmon, and because of the dam, the salmon weren't going up into wherever it was they were going up and spawning, and so that had a serious negative impact on the economy of the
Hmm.
town. And the wife wants to, and so the mayor's wife wants to tear down the dam to revitalize the city. But what the issue is that when they built the dam,
Yeah.
the area where that used to be surrounding that water, that's not that's been cut off. They
Hmm.
built a bunch of houses there, and
Yeah.
people moved there, and so they
Which is
can't
like
just be like,
totally a valid like
yeah.
concern on the mayor's part. Like they have to find additional housing. And even if you did get rid of you moved all of the people, you can't just like you have to make it ready again for like
Mhm.
it's like it doesn't work that way.
Yeah. And so yeah, so the wife, very idealistic, very like traditional. She wants the town to be the way it was before. She is really upset that he canceled the Christmas pageant, which was apparently funded by
Hmm.
municipal funds or whatever. And 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 so she's like, we're gonna put it on anyway with what money, I don't know. And Um, and so they have a young daughter who is obviously very upset to see her parents fighting the way that they are, and is very concerned that they're going to get divorced. And they're like that first argument about who's going to watch the daughter. Oh, I guess you don't want to be maternal. You forgot to be maternal. I was like, oh wow. So I guess
Yeah. It
you
was
know.
brutal.
I
He's
was,
like,
I
"Oh,
was
you
like,
don't know what it is to be a mother." Like, what?
oh. So
Like these two people should not be staying married if they are saying these things. I mean, they need
and
significant therapy.
and especially when you say it in front of your child, you gotta
Yes.
please, do that behind closed doors when you think that she's not around,
Yeah.
not when right in front of her.
Like I
So
know that they say that it is sometimes healthy to work out conflict in front of your children, but that's one thing to have a disagreement, to work out a conflict. It's another thing to be saying you're a terrible mother and human and you shouldn't be raising our daughter. Like, I mean,
yeah,
that's not productive.
yeah, and the crazy, and it's like, I mean, you are the child's father. I think it's okay for her to leave for a little while and expect you to look after the
Yeah.
child. I don't know. So anyway, so
It
there's
was,
that.
I mean, I was kind of shocked at this fighting. It was
I I
intense.
was too. I have to say, especially for a Hallmark movie, I was
Yeah.
like, oh goodness, and yeah, but then for me, pretty quickly, even I guess maybe it jogged my memory or something, but pretty quickly I knew that the little girl was Chris.
Yeah.
But and so when I realized that, I'm thinking like, what was she thinking? Like, what was her end game with this? Like, did she think that um Santa, like, if she wrote and said that she wrote this letter to Santa, right? And she wrote that she was little boy named Chris, and that his parents had lost their jobs. They were living out in the woods somewhere, and he didn't want to be a burden, so he was gonna, you know,
Well,
uh,
evidently she says that she wanted Santa to skip their house that year. That's why she wrote to Santa, was that she didn't want to, don't worry about me, skip our house this year. And so I guess that was why. I don't know.
it
I
didn't
mean,
make
she just was super depressed, I think, and needing some comfort. So she wrote to Santa.
no. But the thing, so that's the first letter. She's like, if you don't do this by Christmas Eve, I don't know what it was that she wanted Santa to do by Christmas Eve. She
Yeah.
was, I'm going to go to heaven with the angels, and I know how to do it. That's what she wrote, and it got like that, and that's what brought the FBI and all these people in to like figure out who this child was, and um, and so I'm like, what is she what is she gonna do if she's not even telling Santa the truth about what it is that she really needs? And because
Yeah.
her parents have not lost their jobs. They are about to lose their marriage and their intact family.
Hmm.
But so like that part like just didn't make any sense to
Yeah.
me. And
That's
because
true.
of and so because of that, I was just kind of like, okay, I'll just go along for this ride. I don't get it at this point. So
Well, David and MJ, they end up having to share a
mhm.
room because
Yeah, no,
they,
those were kind of funny.
yeah. And so they're in kind of like an apartment
Yeah.
together. And this is after he tried to find the artist. He goes and he sees Peter Falk's character as
Mhm,
he's the landlord.
mhm,
And I didn't really understand. I thought it was strange that they had the shamrocks. What do they call it? Shamrock's key or something.
mhm.
That's uh that I got it written down somewhere. That's that's the angel, lucky shamrock. I didn't really understand the lucky shamrock, that's the sign of him being an angel. Like, why wouldn't you make it something angelic or Christmassy? Shamrock. What?
Yeah, that was kind of weird.
Yeah.
So I guess he's an angel, not Santa Claus then, I guess.
I definitely got the feeling he was an angel.
or maybe
Yeah.
Santa, or maybe
I
in
mean,
this
especially when
world,
like
yeah.
he evaporates like at the
Mhm.
end,
Well, or,
like he just
or
dissolves.
yeah,
You'd
well,
have to
maybe
be.
Santa, maybe in this universe, Santa is an angel. Maybe Santa is one of the angels.
But why would Santa have the Lucky Shamrock? It doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, I don't know. Leprechauns, elves, they're all just,
Wasn't even Irish.
so I have no idea. Didn't make that. So yeah, that's another thing that just didn't make any sense to me either.
Yeah. And we
So
we really should have had more
mhm,
Peter Falk.
yeah,
Mhm.
I liked him as like these two,
Yeah.
because he like trying to pretend that he wasn't the same person or something. Or like, what do
Hmm.
you mean you saw me? Oh, I just have one of those faces, you know. And I was
Yeah.
like, I love, I
Yeah.
would love that
It
when
was
people.
whimsical. It was fun, especially like when he sells all the candles and he's like, and then David comes out and is to the store manager. It's like, oh, we don't sell candles here. And there was no person working and things like that. That was fun.
Yes, I will say that when they decide to have the Christmas pageant, and of course the mayor's wife puts, you know, I guess she exhausts the electricity and it goes black, and they're like, no, we're not gonna cancel it anyway. We're gonna have all these candles. I'm like, isn't that a fire hazard to have all these candles in enclosed space? But you know,
Well, and
wh-
I feel like too that do you even need to have like, I mean, unless this is super late, you could have it and
well,
not need.
it definitely was at nighttime though, and it's
Yeah, I
so
guess
it was
it's
and it was dark and it was pitch
yeah,
black.
I guess it's the winter.
Yeah, so I mean, it was,
Yeah.
but they definitely needed light,
Mm-hmm.
but you know, that was just silly.
Mm-hmm.
But like I said, I did like the sequence where they go into the hotel, and she had like booked a room. I guess she was late in arriving to the
Yeah,
hotel.
and so they've given
Uh,
up her room, and she's
yeah.
one of those like classic cliche women who have like six bags.
Hmm.
And I'm like, why does she have is she planning on being there for a month? Like, what is she doing?
Yeah, that was hilarious. And
They have kind
when
of
she,
a meet cute on the train.
yeah, yes, the train station.
It was
Uh,
cute.
which I wish they had done more with that, because
Mm-hmm.
I actually did like that, the whole story, um, and I kind of wish that I understood more like why they liked each other, but
Yeah.
but yeah, I don't know what else to
It
say.
just was a pretty downbeat movie with this
Yeah,
couple fighting. This
mhm.
kid wants to commit suicide. I mean, I laugh, I shouldn't laugh, but it was just over the top. And then you
Well,
have
she
and then
doesn't
you have
even
these
really get into that.
flashbacks to his
Mhm.
childhood getting, you know, treated horrible and
Well,
it was
and the
just
thing is,
pretty grim.
he says that he was that his foster family treated him well. He
Hmm.
just felt out of place, and so he decided to run away,
Hmm.
and he was like wandering through the woods for 3 days in the middle of the winter, and
Yeah.
some lumberjack finds him and helps him get back home.
Yeah.
And
The lumberjack with the Lucky Shamrock matches. And he
uh-oh,
says, he saved my life and then he was gone.
yeah, I wonder if I wonder if, was it the same guy? Was it Peter Falk
Oh,
too?
definitely. Yeah, for sure.
So yeah, so I guess maybe Peter Falk is his guardian angel,
Yeah.
and
Well, and also
Santa Claus.
the paintings change and evolve. And at one point she's in the painting.
Yes, yes, she is in one of the paintings. So I think that's what it is. I think Peter Falk is his guardian angel, and he was trying to help him get his life back on track, and he needed to this story to like kind of inspire him in his writing, and also he needs to find the love of his life, and
Hmm.
so he has to be drawn back to his hometown for this story to
Yeah.
meet Fisher Heaton, and you know, Peter Falk did what he needed to do. I mean, he's obviously been like taking care of him, guiding him, helping him his whole life. And so
Yeah.
that's what he needed to do.
And they get pretty close pretty
Mhm.
quickly,
Yes.
forced proximity. They have a
Mhm.
near kiss, and he's like, "It's
Yes.
obvious there's a connection. Don't you feel it?"
Yeah. So, but she doesn't trust it
Yeah.
because she was hurt in her last relationship.
Mhm.
And so she pulls away and like runs out of the room, basically. Which personally I prefer that to like the, you hear a random noise
Yeah.
or the phone
Phone
rings.
call.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
mean, personally for me, like if I'm
Yeah.
in the
I
middle of
agree.
kissing someone, I'm probably not gonna answer the phone. I'll wait until
Yeah.
I call them back after, unless I'm, yeah, I can call them
Yeah.
back.
I agree. And so then she ends up having drinks with Peter Falk's character. And this is when they find out that Chris is the girl, little
Yes.
girl.
Hmm.
And she says, I made up Chris because you wouldn't listen to anything, but you'd listen to Chris. And then her parents say, no matter what happens, we are a family and we'll always love each other. And that would be easier to believe if you hadn't literally just called her a bad mother like not too long
Yeah.
ago. Like, I mean, I don't
Hmm.
know, just this whole thing with the parents really didn't work for me. I did
Yeah.
not like it.
Yeah. I didn't. Yeah. I I was kind of on the path like maybe they just need a divorce. Maybe
Yeah.
that's what's best for everybody.
Hey,
You know,
sometimes it's what's needed. I mean,
I mean, they
if you
obviously.
can't respect each other
Hmm.
and you're in a position where there is no hope
Hmm.
for a reconciliation, then that's the healthiest choice.
Hmm.
It's not
Yeah.
always possible to,
Yeah.
you know?
Unfortunately.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's just not.
So.
I mean, I've been very sheltered from divorce in my life. I none of my siblings have gotten divorced. None of my cousins have gotten divorced. My
Oh.
parents didn't get divorced. Neither of my grandparents ever got divorced. I've had a few aunts and uncles, but I've been most of my friends who got married, like as you know, when I was in college and stuff, they're still married. I don't I just am very, very lucky,
Hmm.
but there is absolutely cause, you
Hmm.
know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
My parents just had their 37th anniversary.
Oh
So
wow. That's amazing. That's a big accomplishment.
yes.
How many siblings do you have?
I have three
Nice.
younger brothers. None of us are married yet.
Nice.
So, hopefully
Um
someday.
yeah.
Uh,
So they say, "Can we go to the pageant together?" And so they've kind of decided to kind of make up, and this is when the lights go out.
hmm.
And they say it would take a miracle to get the lights back on.
Hmm. And so Peter Falk sells the candles somehow. He,
Yes.
I guess, miraculously conjured. It was a miracle. He
Mhm.
miraculously conjured all these candles for them to buy from this store.
Yeah.
And and somehow they're able to put up all these candles safely and don't like burn down this
Mhm.
building with the whole town in it.
Yeah.
So the pageant happens, it brings in the Christmas spirit, and for
But I
some
just
reason.
don't think that the town was all that down. Like, for a movie called A Town Without Christmas, they really weren't that. It was just this
Yeah.
one couple that was
Yeah,
awful, and,
the, the, the first family of the town was
yeah.
messed. But everybody else seemed okay. I mean, they were
Yeah.
just about Chris, and I'm like, for such a small town, you would think that somebody would know who Chris is, and someone
Yeah.
would know of a child named Chris who's like, because it seemed like there was only like one school in the town, right?
Yeah.
So, they there had to be like somewhere in the third to fifth grade, a kid named Chris. Someone would know if both of the parents lost their jobs or something. Like, this
Mhm.
is a
There would
pretty.
be other candidates at least.
Mhm, yeah.
Well, so
So.
she does this whole news story
Mhm,
exposing Chris,
mhm. But then they don't
and
really expose Chris. They
yeah,
they're like, Chris represents such and such and such person. It could be anyone.
but he
Um,
gets really
this-
mad at her about it. and and he says, all you care about is your job. You don't care about this town. Your career is your life.
Which, to be honest, it kind of was.
Yeah.
And
But
but
it didn't seem like that much of a nefarious thing that she did.
it,
But then
yeah, she didn't do anything.
she's just reporting. She's a reporter. That's her job.
But I think it
But
was, he thought that she was actually going to say who Chris was specifically, and
mhm,
she didn't. It's kind of like the whole trope of the, like, an article being published or a book being
yeah,
published, and they think that they're going to
eavesdropped.
expose a secret, and they never actually read the article or book, whatever. So yeah, I think it was that whole thing, and so of course, he figures out that she's not some evil reporter that's just, a heartless reporter,
Mhm,
that she actually cares about the town and the people and
yeah,
her and everything, and so now they can be together, and
yeah.
I
But
think that's
before she tells him, she says, "I've done something horrible," and but then they have like a big kiss. This is like a long. I was like, wow.
Oh yeah, they did.
Yeah,
Yes, a nice and very unmark like,
yeah,
or
yeah. I'm like, wow. And this it's after the pageant, and then he's like, I trusted you. How could you do this?
I
And
love it.
and then you have Peter Falk, who is uh at the studio destroying the VHS tape. That's how old this movie
Yes.
is.
And Peter Falk, I think, tells him to like go and talk to her because and everything
Yeah.
later.
And she says, I found hope in a small town that thought it was dying, common people who have pride, who believe in community. And I just don't feel like the movie earned that.
Yeah.
What were the both because the town wasn't without hope. The town was
Yeah.
fine. It was just
Yeah.
this one letter writer child and this one couple that hated each other. That was
Yeah.
it.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that, yeah, if they wanted to do it like that, they should have established that, how, um
Yeah.
that the town really was kind of struggling, instead of just
Mhm.
showing this one family within the town.
Yeah.
Welcome to the Pilot Podcast. My name is BJ.
And my name is Me Too, and we promise this promo is worth it, so please don't skip ahead.
We're two judgy friends who put our judgmental skills to work for you. We review the pilot episodes of new and popular shows and shows that our listeners request to answer your question, should I watch this?
Look, a lot of us are spending a lot more time at home, and yes, we should be reading and trying new projects and enriching ourselves, but does anything beat binging a great show?
Let us take the guesswork out of deciding what your next show will be. Tune in to The Pilot Podcast at thepilotpodcast.com.
That Peter Falk is the angel,
Mm.
and the little girl says Chris just wants to be loved. To run an interview with Chris would only exploit his circumstances, and we don't want that on Channel 10.
Mhm.
Chris is doing okay.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I don't think it would necessarily, it's all about how it was handled. Like I don't think it would, I mean, if you're just reporting, but if you're using it to kind of like, I guess when she'd been doing things like the gun thing, it was there was more of a like a
There's
message behind it. It was more
Yeah.
like an editorial kind
Mhm.
of a thing, where like instead of just I'm a reporter, I'm reporting what happened, here's what happened. And they seem like I guess if you were exploiting it,
Mhm.
then it would kind of make her a big figure or something like that, or make her maybe because she
Mhm.
was lying, or I don't know what exactly would exploit her, but it would just give her attention that maybe she didn't want or something like that.
Yeah. Well, I think that was just an excuse not to expose the little girl.
Mhm.
I
Yeah,
don't think.
yeah. That she was that
Mhm.
to give her the attention, but
Mhm.
I do think that there is a case to she's not like a terrible human because she was doing a report. I guess she was
Mm.
a reporter.
Yeah, she was doing her job. She
Yeah.
she she.
But anyway, and so she's learned over the years to trust her instincts and he trust how she feels about him and how he feels about her. And we get another kiss.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
And
So
that's when he realizes that Peter Falk was the angel who saved his life, the lumberjack saved his
right.
life in the
Mhm.
forest. And then they says, "You aren't going to miss me. You belong now. You belong in
Yeah.
the town." And they see the wishing star, and he writes the book A Town Without Christmas.
Hmm.
And so it has illustrations by Max, because they're the illustrations from the paintings.
Hmm.
And so yeah, I guess they stay in this small town. I don't know how she's doing her news work, but
Yeah. Yeah. I'm not sure. This is before they do the correspondent from home. They don't have that
yeah.
equipment yet.
Yeah, and I mean, and if this movie were made now, like the whole town would be so much more like whimsical, and especially anything with the pageant would be way, way bigger, and just
Yeah.
everything would be bigger.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, and you do sometimes have these movies with lots of conflict. Like I could not stand that Christmas Village movie,
Mm.
this last, where they were just fighting, fighting, fighting. And if you're going to do that, you got to make it pay off. And I have to be like a sobbing mess by the end if you're going to have that much fighting.
Yeah. I don't
Ah,
mind a little bit of it, but it needs to be like grounded and I agree, it needs to like pay off.
mhm.
But it and and you need to really like establish the characters so that so that you still like have sympathy for them and understand like their perspectives and like
Yeah.
why they're fighting um and what they really want. But you know,
Yeah.
most of them don't bother. So,
It just
but yeah,
didn't give me the warm feels, this movie, like
yeah,
I was
this movie,
hoping it would.
yeah, I mean, for me, I I was like, "Oh, okay, this movie actually has like some stakes with this child and all this other stuff." And then when you figure out this little girl, and then you're just like, "This makes no sense. I don't understand what's going on right now."
Yeah.
And so when that happens, like when the whole like premise of the movie just doesn't make any sense anymore, like I was like no longer invested, and I was kind of like, okay, let me just sit here and watch this to the end.
Yeah.
But
Yeah. So I'd probably give this one, just because of the quality of the acting, I'd probably give it 3 crowns out of
yeah,
5.
I think it's 2.75, and I agree.
Yeah.
Like that, very the acting did kind of save it and make it like somewhat watchable, but um, you know, I don't plan on watching this one
I wish
again.
they had just cut out the couple. I wish it had just been about the reporter going, to the
Mhm,
country and falling in love with Christmas and
mhm.
and whatever. Like, another similar movie is Dear Santa, Amy Acker,
Oh
you
yeah,
know, kind of similar with a letter. And I mean, that movie is like a horror movie in disguise, but just on the surface, like it's a movie.
yeah.
That's Lifetime, though. Well, let's talk about Baby's First Christmas. This was in
Mhm,
2012, and
mhm,
it's holy cow, the summary is like very long. Let's hear. When a pair of feuding colleagues, Kyle and Jenna, are thrown together after their siblings, Jim and Trisha, fall in love, they have to learn to get along in time for their nephew's birth on Christmas. Realizing Jim and Trisha have major money troubles, Kyle and Jenna band together to help and end up on a snowy New York adventure that will prove miracles really do happen at Christmas.
mhm,
And this one, it stars Casper Van Dien and Rachel Wilson, and is
mhm,
written by Louis Chesler, Robert Vaughn, Fariba Chesler, directed by Jonathan Wright.
mhm.
And this one kind of reminded me a little bit of the movie with Anne Heche that we watched for this classic.
Yes.
Where there was all that conflict between the father and the son, and they
Yes.
literally
Mhm.
come to blows at one point. I was like,
Yeah.
what? And this just had so much, like it was just so downbeat, and all the references to It's a Wonderful Life, and they were really feeling that in these early Hallmark years. Everything was trying to be It's a Wonderful Life.
I don't think that this was necessarily like
Like
I didn't
all those
find it like
like things to Mr. Potter and the evil bank and the I don't know. Like I just feel like so many we saw it in that other Eve's Christmas. That one is very It's a Wonderful Lifey. Like a lot of these movies from this era, like were really trying to like teach the characters a lesson. It couldn't just be like a
yes.
cute little romance.
Yeah, so yeah, and this one, you know, so this was very much in enemies to lovers.
Yeah.
And really enemies to lovers. So like they start off there working together at they're working for the same law firm
Mm-hmm.
in I think Chicago, and um and they are counsel for some type of merger or some type of business deal. And there have been some accusations of like wrongdoing on the part of the company.
Mm-hmm.
And she's saying that they should go to trial so that everybody knows that they're innocent. And he's like, just pay the settlement so that you can get your money. And they agree with him. And he's like, if this is what you want to do, like the long game and all this stuff, then you need to do environmental law. And she's like, well, you know what? You're right. And I'm starting with an environmental law firm in San Francisco at the first of the year. So I'll never see you again. Ha.
Right.
And you can tell he's a little disappointed because I think he enjoys his sparring and whatnot.
Because she basically sees him as like a suit.
Yeah.
You're just a
Yeah.
puppet for these.
For the man.
Yeah, for the big man. You don't have any integrity, kind of a
Yeah.
thing. And the bad men of business.
Yeah.
And it's always a risky thing in these movies when you make your leading guy a bad man of business.
I mean, he was like, to be honest, like his portrayal was more like the wrong guy. Like
Mm-hmm.
he
it's true.
Yeah, he seems more like this is the guy that she'd be with at the beginning, and then she would go to like to visit her brother and sister-in-law and
Yeah.
meet in the small town and fall in love with him.
Yeah.
Because he was very like kind of slick.
Yeah.
And,
It's a risky move. It's like in Hearts of Christmas, where Plo plays the hospital administrator who's like firing everybody. Like that's a risky move.
He didn't fire anybody.
Well, no, he's gonna fire the beloved lady who's they all love so much and making all these cuts. And
he was gonna he was encouraging her to retire. And he did, and he also was like cutting funding to the nerd party, which is fine. Like if y'all want to have a
it's
party,
a risky move is all I'm saying, is making your lead that guy.
Personally, I don't think he was. So I don't think that Christopher Palaha's character was a bad guy.
No, I mean they work and I thought they had chemistry. I like the movie, but he starts out as definitely the antagonist.
Well, I guess, but
yeah, she really doesn't like him at first. And then
so I get that.
He's like, I have to do it. Part of being a boss. And it's true. Like part of being a boss is you have to occasionally fire people. Like part of being a boss is you have to cut budgets sometimes. Like you have to. And he's just like, this is what happens. And
like, do you want the clothes, or do you want it, or do you and everybody lose their jobs, or
yeah, exactly.
So that's me. So with him, with Casper Van Dien's character in this movie, I think that he was just not. He legitimately was not like the best guy. Like he was a little oily. Obviously he had himself a little. He liked to gamble. He was.
That's true. And he was very bitter about his father.
Yes.
Very bitter.
Obviously had a major gambling issue and was a bad father. Like he basically abandoned them, was I guess a bit of a drunk, showing up at his graduation drunk and, couldn't be there when their mother died, and everything. So I understood his bitterness towards his father.
Oh yeah. Well, and so, that he's a bad guy at the beginning because he tries to bribe the flight attendant.
Yes.
And she's just like, I can't make the plane appear. Like, it's not here. Like, what?
So yeah, they meet in Chicago. Okay, so right after that scene where she tells him that she's leaving for an environmental firm, they have like a company Christmas party, and she brings her brother and he brings his sister,
Mhm.
and the two siblings end up falling in
Yeah.
love.
They're like making out.
Yes, they're in a hardcore like makeout session in the
Yeah.
middle of this party,
For like 10
just
years.
in front of everybody. And I was like, wow, okay, Hallmark. And
Yeah.
uh,
And if
and
people are fans of Good Witch, you had Noah Cap playing the brother, which was fun. He was on Good Witch.
who was he?
He I forget his character's name. He was the like he worked at the he worked with Brandon in the
Mhm.
police. Um
Okay, okay, yeah.
uh
So
what's his name? Derek. His name was
okay,
Derek.
okay,
Yeah.
yeah. So the two siblings fall in love. They get married. They have a little girl. So the two main characters share a niece,
Hmm.
and the siblings are expecting their second child.
Yes.
Um, and so they're both going to go to spend Christmas with this family together.
Hmm.
And I guess they run into each other at the airport. There's a major snowstorm, and all the flights are canceled. She like tries to like see about the first next flight, but all flights are canceled. Then he tries to throw his weight around as like this platinum member or something or other.
Yeah.
And I loved like the customer service lady. She's
Yeah,
like,
it's not
take
flight attendant, but
your
yeah.
yeah, yeah. She's like, take your platinum card and sit down and wait. Then they decide to go to carpool together. And they go into this thing about the music, and he's like, no rap. She's like, no country. And they're taking turns driving. She's listening to Christmas music and singing along, and he's not really
And he
feeling it.
says what? They're naming the baby after the deadbeat?
Yes.
And she
Which,
says, it's Christmas, it's time to forgive. But he's not there yet, that's for sure.
yeah, definitely not. And I guess, you would think that he would have, I guess, obviously, she's in better touch with the siblings than he is. And
Hmm.
and he does not, because he doesn't seem to know that his sister and father have reconciled. Um, and especially not to the point that she would name her child after their father.
Yeah.
But um, but so he's very upset about this, and
Hmm.
she judging him for being so angry with his father. And then
Yeah.
but she kind of understands after he kind of shares some of the experiences that he's had as a child with his father.
And I
um
did think that some of the banter back and forth between the two of them was pretty good. I thought they
yeah,
had pretty good chemistry, and
I
like the
agree.
whole debate about over Barbie, I thought was pretty well done. Is
Yes,
Barbie a unrealistic body image or an independent, strong female? Like
yes,
that was a good like debate back and
yeah.
forth.
I did like that. And
Hmm.
you know and they were talking about how, like, if having her carrying the little niece around her, she's going to become a radical feminist who um doesn't shave her armpits or something like that.
Yeah.
And so they're like arguing, pretty much the whole movie, about everything. And then he has a bet on a basketball game. And then the TV goes out. He calls the cable company to try to get the game back on so he can know whether he's going to win or
Hmm.
lose his bet. And he has to get some information for the cable company about their account
It's
information.
when he sees
And
all the
that,
bills.
yes, all the bills that are past due. And they ask Karen, like, what does your father do during the day? And she's like, oh, he drops me off at school, and then he goes back home, and it's like on the internet most of the time. And
Mhm.
sometimes he goes out or on the phone until then they realize, oh, he's lost his job. They're falling behind on all their bills, and so they just start paying
Yeah,
all of
I'm
his
like, I need
bills.
these siblings. I if I left
And
a bunch of unpaid bills for my siblings, look, yeah.
yeah, yeah, and
Hey, this is
so
very generous.
yeah, and the thing, and she's like judging him for, like,
A little bit of hesitancy.
yeah,
But
and I'm like,
I'm
uh,
I mean,
I'm
it
gonna,
is a huge trigger that I mean, or not trigger, it's a huge warning that he is gambling, especially if
mhm,
that's what his, father was addicted to. Ooh,
yeah,
that would make me very concerned.
yeah.
And I guess we're supposed to believe that these two are very successful lawyers, that they just have like tons of
Well, he
money.
definitely is. He
Yeah.
definitely, and they even make a comment like he was able to basically. It seemed like he almost had it was going to do it
Yeah.
with cash, and she needed to use a credit card to do it. So like
Mm.
so she's not making quite as much money as he is, but she still has enough that she can cover half of her
Yeah.
brother's bills
But
with her own.
only in a Hallmark movie would so they go to pay the mortgage and
Mhm.
they're sorry, your residential property has been rezoned for commercial
Yeah.
space. They won't
Yes.
sell it. I mean,
Yeah.
this looked like this was in some like housing develop, like it's not like this was a city house. And that just made me laugh, they're
Yeah. I was
like,
like, yeah.
we
they were like in.
Mr.
So they were
Cotter,
in.
the evil villain.
Yes. So they were in New York, but it was obviously like they're probably like on Long Island or something,
Yeah, yeah,
uh,
yeah.
the suburbs. And so I'm like, what are they gonna do for this with this neighborhood in the suburbs? Like, and so and basically their whole neighborhood, that like this whole
Yeah.
block or whatever, all of them have sold their houses and are
They
gonna
were
be
all
leaving.
rezoned for office space.
But the thing is, like, he's within his rights to do. If everybody sold it, and they're defaulting on their mortgage, and the bank is taking their house, and he's paid the bank, then he can do whatever he wants. So, you know, and
Mhm.
then and the thing is, like, what? So now, if so, anyway, we'll
Yeah.
get to that at
So
the
then we
end.
also have this whole subplot with this woman who loses her
Mhm.
dog,
Yes.
and they're trying to, find the dog. And so there's sort of that whole plot. We also
Mhm.
have she goes into labor, and
Mhm.
the sister, and they're trying to be the first Christmas baby so that they
Yeah.
can get a $25,000 prize.
Yes, the first Christmas baby. And so, yeah, and so at the very beginning, like as soon as they get to the house, the brother and sister-in-law are like, um, she's in labor now. So can we take your rental car? And he's like, okay, can you put some towels or something down? Because she said her water broke and everything. And like the heroine is like, wow, how dare you say to put towels down on the car? On this rental car that we did not get insurance for. So we're gonna get extra. I mean, come on.
It's just
But
water. Anyway,
but still, I was like, just put some towels down. Anyway.
We'd like to take a second and thank our sponsor for this episode of the podcast. It's the Hallmarkies merch store.
Are you looking for that perfect gift for the postable, hardy, or Hallmarky in your life?
What about getting that t-shirt or hoodie that will help you stand out at your next holiday party?
Now is the time to check out the Hallmarkies merch store.
Full of festive designs by artists like Jessica Miller, Carrie from Hallmark Comics, and more.
You can even have more than just shirts, but totes, cell phone cases, notebooks, mugs, and more.
And it isn't just Hallmark. We have designs for Anna Green Gables, Man from Snowy River, The Nanny, and more.
Every purchase at the merch store goes to help support the podcast and allows us to make the great content you know and love.
There are frequent sales, so go to tpublic.com/stores/hallmarkies or see the link in the description.
That's tpublic.com/stores/hallmarkies.
but
So
I
of
mean, it was
course,
just interesting because so they have all of these scenes where Noah's character is super worried about what's happening. The baby, the labor's not going
Mhm.
that they'd like. And he is in the chapel at the hospital
Yeah,
praying that he can get a job, praying
Mhm.
that God will help him.
Mhm.
And and they do sometimes have stuff like even now on
Yeah,
Hallmark, but it's just different. It's
yeah.
like if they do it, usually it's part of a specific, like a Dayspring movie or something like
Mhm.
that, or maybe Signed, Sealed, Delivered will do it, but it's usually not just sort of worked into the story like it is here.
Yeah, and it's like I think the baby was breech,
Mhm.
and then so they were gonna have to do it, and they could I guess they tried to do like a rotation so that she could get get them into like the optimal position. Then they found out that like the umbilical cord was wrapped around the baby's neck, so they had to do an emergency C-section, and they were all worried that something was gonna go wrong. And of course, because the what's weird is that um, the brother and sister-in-law took the uh, wait a minute. I don't think they ever got to the hospital. Never mind. Okay, so because they never told him which hospital they went to, and so
Didn't the
that and
little
so
girl know?
no, she didn't know.
I was thinking the little
And
girl told them. I can't remember.
no. And so the thing is, so he has the car. They could have gone to the hospital and gotten the car if they knew where they were. Because that's why they were like out on the streets basically for most of the day because they didn't have a car. They were just kind of like using taxis or walking wherever they needed to go. And it was cold and it was snowing
Mhm.
and all that other stuff. So
Well, and this Mr. Cotter is just the absolute worst. One of the most bad man of business I think we've ever seen in one of these movies. He was terrible. He hates dogs. He sends the dog to the pound. He
yes.
he, he's like mean to the old lady. He
Mhm,
he's just a lot.
mhm. He,
He's want to build commercial real estate under
yeah.
their beloved home.
Yeah. I mean, he does soften a little bit with the little girl. A little. But,
When he takes the
so
dog to the pound, though, oh my
yeah,
gosh, he's
yes.
like the worst.
Yeah, that's terrible. You don't do that to someone's dog,
Yeah.
especially if you see the collar. Now, of course, like if they go to a pound and they have the collar, then they're gonna and usually that'll give like some type of they would have like contact information for the owner,
Yeah.
and then and so they would have and so the dog would have been fine. So I
So
kind
they
of
go to
understand.
the police and they because there's a purse thief that he chases.
Yes.
And so then
Yes,
they end up
and
with
they
the
think
police
that he
and
was the one that stole they think and the police and the lady
yeah,
think that he was the one that stole the purse when he was actually trying to help this lady
right.
who got her purse snatched.
Yeah, and there's like the police were those stables? That was the police stables behind that they were at?
It was I don't know where they were, but yeah, they went somewhere and they wanted to like stay in for shelter. And the security guard was like, "No, I
Mhm.
can't do that." And then of course the little girl like it's like, "Are you sure?" And then he's like,
Because
and
I know they have horses. They're
mhm,
part of NYPD and all that. So they must have a stable like somewhere. I've never
yeah,
really thought about it before, but I'm like, where are they? Um and they have the near kiss. The girl
yeah,
walks in, which was like a pretty decent near kiss. Like that
yeah,
you would stop kissing if like your niece walks in.
yeah. And so yeah, they were like,
Are
they were
you guys
talking
going to kiss?
because it looks like you're about to kiss.
Yeah.
Like why was she? Well, I mean, whatever. So, yeah, I guess they're talking about when they were working together, and apparently, like she used to take a bunch of people to some restaurant, and she never invited him, and he was like, I know you don't like that particular place, and she's like, well, I would have enjoyed your company, and so he kind of admits to
Mhm.
liking her a little bit during that time, but because he could tell that she didn't like him, he kind of acted out a little bit, which unfortunately is what a lot of guys will do.
But he finds
So
out that not only are they making this home into commercial real estate, he finds out that his clients are the
yeah,
people buying it,
Yes,
working with Mr. Cotter.
his company is representing the company that is representing Mr. Cotter's company. And and so she's like, you need to stop this deal. And he's like, what can I do? This
Mhm.
deal's already gone through.
You do get another, they go to the hospital, they get the ride to the hospital, you're doing the
Mhm.
cesarean, and Noah's
And the
character
dad.
he says it wouldn't hurt to say a little prayer.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Right. And then and that's when the father shows up.
Yes.
And
And
there's a tense meeting between the two of them.
yeah.
He obviously still very bitter and angry, about his childhood with his father, and I think a little upset about the reconciliation. The fact that his nephew is going to be named after his father.
Yeah,
So
he says it's not the movies, people don't change.
I always love it when they do that in movies and TV shows, where
Yeah.
they're like, "Oh, this isn't a movie or this isn't TV," and yeah.
Well, and the little girl calls in to the radio, and
Mhm.
all I care about is my baby brother being born.
Yes. Yes, exactly.
So
And, she talks about how all these, kind of bad things have been happening with her family, but she still has hope and is happy because she's going to have her little brother's going to be.
mhm. Yeah,
It's,
and so he finds out about these clients,
mhm.
and he goes off, he leaves, and there's like, and the little girl says, why is Uncle Kyle leaving? He says, because that's what he does.
Yes,
Oh.
which is weird because I don't think he's ever done that before. So, so
When
I
there's
don't know
the
how she would know that. She was the one that left their first company, right? He
it's
stayed.
true, she went to San Francisco,
So yeah.
but she's bitter about
Mhm.
him,
Yeah.
and people
Because
don't change.
yeah,
He's bitter, just a bunch of bitterness going on,
yes,
and there's a
very,
family curse.
yes, yes, and yeah, on the whole, I guess the men or everybody, I don't know what the curse is, but there's a family curse and everybody's unhappy
Hmm.
or something. So, and so he goes off. They thankfully they have a safe delivery. The baby's fine. They
Yeah.
go home, and he does go by to see baby Christopher, um, and hopes that he is able to overcome the family curse.
Yeah.
And he does say that he loves Christopher, and then
It
as
was
he's
sweet.
yeah, and as he's leaving, his father approaches him and says, you're walking out on this love or whatever, and he says, before you leave, I have something for you, and he brings him a gift, and he does take the gift with him to
Hmm.
the airport or wherever it is
Hmm.
he goes, and when he
And he
opens it,
says, if you run away from her, you'll regret it.
yes, and then and when he's at the airport, he opens up the gift, and it is the train that he'd asked for Christmas when he was a little boy, that his father never got for him because he was out drinking and gambling or whatever it was he was doing. So and so that turns him around. He goes back to the house, and what was it he was singing when he came back? Some Christmas carol.
Oh, I can't
Um,
remember.
I think it was her, whatever.
Oh, Jingle Bells.
Yes, yes, because I think
Yeah.
that was the song that was playing on the radio when they were, yes, when they were driving
Hmm.
from Chicago to New York, and so he sings Jingle Bells like at the top of his lungs, and says that he's gonna call the company and make sure that this deal doesn't go through, and he's changed and he loves
Then he
her.
calls, and he quits. So he calls
Yes,
and they said, we're not going
yeah.
to we're not that we're going to work with these people.
Mhm.
And so then he quits, And we also have the old lady named
Yeah.
Ethel. She and Lammy, the dog, come to Christmas dinner. And
Yes.
basically, she gives Noah's character a job
Mhm.
managing her affairs, her
Yeah.
accounts.
Yeah. So her brother, right, was I guess a stockbroker, and and I don't know why he got let go, but he got let go. And so she's like, oh, well, I need someone to help manage my portfolio. And I have all of these different charitable organizations and all these different accounts. And
Yeah.
so, so now the brother slash brother-in-law has a job. I don't, did Noah get a job? Or I don't know.
Wait, that's his job. He's
Wait.
going to manage the accounts.
Okay.
That's Noah's job. And then so he doesn't have a new job.
Right.
But you kind of just assume that he will get another job
Yeah,
being a lawyer.
he'll find another job, or
Yeah.
he'll open up his
Eh,
own firm somewhere. Maybe he'll move to San Francisco with.
and it was a very cute moment when he says, I realized something very important to me. You.
Yes.
That was good. That was good. That was good.
I always believe it when they have those
And he
little
says,
cheesy
Jenna,
moments.
you're my miracle.
Yes. Oh my gosh. So now that was classic Hallmark right there. Um,
And then he thanks the dad for the train and says, I
Mhm,
finally had a father and I love you,
mhm,
dad.
mhm.
And they
Oh,
get an extension on the mortgage because Mr.
yeah.
Cotter sees the light.
Yes, he sees the light, and I guess, all that other land that he purchased, I'm not sure what he's gonna do. Because he apparently bought this whole block, and
Yeah.
everybody else is moving. So is he?
They probably could get a good now they have 2 kids, they probably need more space.
Yeah. So that was something. So I guess Mr. Cottage is just gonna sell those houses back or something.
Mhm.
Um. So anyway, uh, yeah, so they go in and with their nephew, and they're talking about the Christmas baby, and they have hope, and they have each other, and they say Merry Christmas to Christopher, the Christmas baby, and
Mhm.
then they kiss, and you know roll credits.
Yes. So this one, I don't know. Like I don't think I would ever watch it again. There's too much conflict for what I want out of these particular movies. But it did have some cute moments. I think it was pretty well written.
Mhm.
I'd probably give
Some
it
good
like,
jokes and banter in some of it.
yeah. I mean, maybe I would watch it again. Uh,
Yeah, you just have to be in the right
right mood. Yeah.
mood.
I'd probably give it like 3.5, 3.75, something like that.
Yeah, you know what? I will too. Because I remember when I originally watched it, I think this was like I said, this might have been one of like the ones that I really liked, and I used to watch it every year for a few years, and then it kind of just fell off the map, and I hadn't seen it in quite a few
Hmm.
years. And I was like, and I think one of the things that struck me was like some of the jokes were just like not typical Hallmark jokes. Like
Yeah.
they actually went for, a couple of like little innuendos and things like that,
Hmm.
which I think shocked me at
Well,
first
even
because I
just
just
something
had
like the
not seen it.
Barbie conversation, you wouldn't necessarily see that, I don't think, now.
No, no.
Yeah.
and and then like some of the other things about her becoming a radical feminist that won't shave her armpits, and
Yeah.
you know um and other and some of the other things that they said, and like you said, there was a little bit more, like it had more kind of like darker elements than you typically see
Yeah.
in like a Hallmark movie, and more like conflict, which I can enjoy. My I like the enemies to lovers trope,
Hmm.
when it's done well. I think it can be tough to do it in Hallmark movies because, you know, for me, if you do, enemies to lovers, it needs to be a little steamy. unless you
Mhm.
have a writer that is like really, really good at the banter to kind of show
Mhm.
underlying tension.
Yeah.
Um, and not and some of the writers pull it off better than others.
Well, it's
Um,
tricky. I mean, I've said this many, many, many times that the key to enemies to lovers is you have to show the both of the characters that they are likable to everybody else but the two people that are
mhm,
fighting, right?
mhm,
Because if they're just miserable people and you don't, then we don't want them to get together. We don't care.
mhm,
But when you're, or you have to be really funny.
mhm,
And so when you have something like Pride and Prejudice,
mhm,
Darcy and Lizzie are beloved by everybody around them except
mhm,
for by each other. That's
mhm,
why it works. And
mhm.
in this, I think that they did show enough humanity for both characters
Yeah. I think the niece
to
helps with both of
for
them.
yeah, the niece helped, the helping with the dog, the old lady, like all of that overall worked. It still felt overall a little bit downbeat for just the energy that I want from this kind of movie. But I think that's why it worked is there was enough humanity for both characters and they had enough chemistry and there were enough like fun.
Yeah.
There was enough banter. It overall, I think, works as a movie.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
Um, I think like the first, because I think the first time that I had like watched it again was it might have been a couple of years ago, and
Mm-hmm.
I was thoroughly steeped in like what modern Hallmark is.
Yeah.
And so I was just like shocked. I was like, oh my goodness, like what is going on? But now, after this with this one, I'm like, okay, this is okay. This is fine.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that I think that in some ways the previous movie, like Town Without Christmas, I don't know, because that one had some like as far as like the overall like plot just didn't really work for me. But I thought that like they had really strong performances, and I thought that like the early development of the characters was very strong in that movie compared to this
Mm-hmm.
one. They like
Mm.
these two characters were more archetypes um,
Yeah.
than like A Town Without Christmas. But I think that kind of actually helps a little bit. And I think, you know, I think I've heard like you say on the podcast like one time how archetypes can help because you don't need to take that time to like develop the character because you just know, okay, this is the slick bad man of business, and
Yeah.
this is the idealistic Christmas loving,
Yeah. And then you can just move on with the script.
yes.
And this movie did try to tackle a lot for one
Hmm.
of these little movies. And I think
Yeah.
maybe that's part of the disconnect that doesn't 100% work, but like enough of it works that
Yeah.
I think it's overall an interesting film. And it is just interesting how you can, because they do have films with conflict
Yeah.
now, and a lot of times those are movies I hate, but there's just a overall sort of downbeat kind of energy. And if you think of some of the other ones we've talked about in this classic series, the like that one, like the Anne Heche one, like
Mhm.
very downbeat. Like there's
Mhm.
a lot of these just have that really like pretty
Mhm.
sad.
Yeah. I I will say I enjoyed. I mean, well, that was a Hall of Fame, so it was a little,
Hmm.
like obviously like much better
Hmm.
budget and like
Yeah.
overall like filmmaking quality was better and
Well, and
whatever.
think of a season
But
for miracles. That
yeah,
one's very like
yeah,
very sad. Like I'm not they're like good movies, but there was something I think in Hallmark in pre
mhm,
countdown to Christmas that was really trying to bring in those emotions.
mhm. Yeah. And for me, like I don't mind. So I don't mind like movies with sad themes as long as there's a happy ending. I don't like
Yeah.
movies with sad endings, but as long as it's not like overwhelming.
Yeah.
And for me, well, Season for Miracles is like one of my all-time favorites. I love that
Yeah.
movie.
It's a really good one.
But
I think it just particularly for me, for some reason, like fighting is very difficult to pull off.
mhm,
Like this the divorce couple fighting,
yeah,
like that kind of fighting, it is tough. I
yeah,
that is
for
really
me,
hard.
Yeah, for me, like with those types of things, I don't mind fighting, especially if it's funny fighting.
Yeah, yeah,
And also when you have um and when you see the characters like more three-dimensionally, like for example, that couple, all you saw them do was fight. That was all they did the whole movie.
yeah,
And so you didn't really see them in any other like light.
yeah. That's true. That's a good point.
So with that, and they just weren't likable because all they were doing was fighting the whole time. Like if you saw them, like let's say one of them was good friends with the main character, and they were talking, and they were like trying to help
Yeah,
him
you're
like
right.
pick up his
Yeah,
book and do something, and then and then they opened up about how the marriage, how he loved, how much, like let's say that
yeah,
there's a mayor, and he was like, I love my wife so much, but we just haven't been on the same page, and and I can tell that my daughter is like worried that we're going to break up, and I don't know what to do. Like if we had seen that,
yeah.
then I think we
That's
would have
true.
had more compassion, or like identified with him more. But they didn't. They just fought. Every single scene that they were in was basically them fighting
Yeah, and it's
directly.
like they learn that, oh, this is causing a negative effect on our daughter, and then they're like, oh, well, we do love each other, and that's
Yeah,
it.
yeah, that's it.
You
And
didn't
all
think
these
that fighting
issues.
in front of your child, like that didn't occur to you before?
They were just so caught up. They were just so caught up in what they were going, and like their kind of different
Yeah.
ideals,
It just
about.
shows how tricky it is. I
Hmm.
mean, that's one thing, the idea I've thought of sometimes about writing a script or whatever, and it's very overwhelming because
Hmm.
there's so many ways that
Hmm.
that it just doesn't work.
Hmm.
It's tricky.
And,
It's very hard.
and then the
Very
thing
hard.
is, and then the thing for like a writer is, like, you write the script, and let's say that there was more stuff, there
Mhm.
were scenes where the couple was doing more or things like that, and then it gets cut out
Yeah,
when the director gets it, or in editing, because they have to like cut scenes and things like that. So that can also be part of it.
it's true.
Yeah,
It's true.
so.
Well, let us know if you are listening, if you've seen either of these films, what you
Mhm.
think of them. They were a little bit hard to track down.
Mhm.
So
Yes.
we actually had to purchase DVDs for Town Without Christmas. And so it's tricky to find them. But if you have seen them or do see them, let us know what you think. We'd be curious to know for these two particular. And if you have others that are classic Hallmark Christmas movies, before, did we say 2013 or 14? Anyway, old ones. Let us know
Yeah.
which ones you
So I
think.
think anything predating,
Yeah.
I think we've moved the date a couple of times. I think it's before they actually started Countdown to Christmas,
Yes.
which what was the first official year of Countdown to Christmas? Was it 2014 or 2015, something like
Something
that?
like that. Yeah, yeah.
So
So
anything
yeah,
before.
anything through 2013 is kind of what we were thinking. So
Mhm.
let us know, and join the Patreon. That's how we got Thaddeus and I became friends, and he's a member of the Patreon, and we certainly appreciate that. And all that information's in the description. We also have our merch store.
Mhm.
And if you are listening on iTunes, please leave your ratings and reviews. That really helps us a lot and people to be able to find us. And if you are listening on YouTube, please give the video a thumbs up, subscribe to the channel. Most of our viewership on YouTube is from non-subscribers. So if you're one of those people, please subscribe. It really helps us a lot. And so thanks so much. This was a lot of fun. And we'll talk to y'all later. Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas.